with the Langley City Coordinator, Anita, and Deb, who helps out every week. And so, tell us what's going on tonight.
Oh, we're so excited tonight. Well, it's a weigh and measure night. Deb does all of that for us.
Yep.
And so the girls, this is their first measure of this segment. So it's going to be a big tell for them.
So that's since the first segment measurement.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So we'll probably see some really good inches on tonight.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah. And then we have Monique McDonald, who is with Sacred Gifts. She has her own company called Sacred Gifts. And I just see that she arrived, and she'll be sharing how to live on purpose.
Oh, that sounds so exciting. It's kind of maybe a little bit like the Real Me the girls did.
I think it'll be an extension of that.
Yeah, an extension, and get some more information about their gifts and who they are.
Yeah, and how to work together as a team for The Apprentice. Because right now they're in The Apprentice segment, and they're busy planning and getting their fundraising events ready.
Yes, The Apprentice. That's always my favorite part, getting to go to all those events.
Oh, I love going too. She's looking for where to go. I have to just... Monique! Hi!
And so we saw our guest speaker come, so we had to go.
Yeah, sorry.
So, but we will talk to you afterwards, and it's going to be a great fun evening.
Yes,
lots of fun stuff going on, and we'll talk to you shortly. Bye.
Anyway, I just want to welcome up Monique. If you give her your undivided attention, another hand.
All right, well, it's great fun to be here, and we had a good time in Abbotsford last night. I have to say this room is a little bigger and a little cooler. Have a seat if you have no idea what your mission or your vision is. You guys all wrote one, right? Last night. I want you to have a seat. If you have ever felt frustrated, confused, discouraged, depressed, ineffective, constantly searching, trying out endless new things, hoping it'll be the thing, and then finding out it's not. Okay. How many of you have spent your time doing things that suck the life out of you? And what I personally believe is that if you're out searching for your purpose and you don't know what it is, you're probably not going to know when how are you going to know when you see it anyway? So instead what I do is really encourage people to notice when they feel on purpose rather than trying to find your purpose, because the fact is, if you feel on purpose, guess what? You probably are, okay? If you're feeling on purpose, you probably are on purpose. There is no one purpose. So I was working as a nurse for over 30 years, and for many of those years I felt totally on purpose. There were some years I didn't, I'll tell you about that later. But for a lot of the years I felt totally on purpose, and if I believed that that was my only purpose, I would still be working as a nurse, and I would be one of those cranky, disgruntled nurses that some of you may have encountered when you're in the hospital, yes? Anybody ever had that experience? Right. So that would be me if I had continued to stay there, because what happened is I felt very on purpose for a long time, then not so much, and I got totally burned out when I worked in the intensive care unit, and then I moved into palliative care, and then I felt totally on purpose again. And I actually ended up leaving nursing, really loving it. So it's a good thing for me that I realized that that wasn't my only purpose, because now I get to do this. And when I'm doing this, I feel totally on purpose. When I'm teaching, I feel on purpose. When I am volunteering at the hospice thrift store, I feel on purpose. But I'm a shift disturber, so I spend a lot of my time doing coaching calls with clients and doing mentoring calls, and when I'm doing that, I feel totally on purpose. I do workshops, and when I'm doing workshops, I feel totally on purpose. So you get the idea? So it's not about one purpose. That might be true for some people. How many of you have heard of Tony Bennett? Yeah. So Tony Bennett started singing like when he was a kid, and he sang his whole life. And he actually says that he sings until he gets tired of singing, and then when he's tired of singing, he paints. And actually, Tony Bennett is an incredibly accomplished painter, and he sells his paintings. They go to auction for huge amounts of money for charity. And he says he paints and paints and paints until he can't paint anymore, and then when he can't paint anymore, he sings. He's never driven a car. You know, like he just knows the two things that make him feel on purpose, which is painting and singing. So many people spend a lot of time and actually waste a lot of time trying to run around figuring out, what their purpose is. So what I believed was that if you knew what your gifts were, that you would be happy. And then what I found is I was teaching people what their gifts are, And then, you know, I would have people call me back to do some coaching or whatever, and then we find out they weren't happy. So then the next thing I found was that it was important to know your gifts. However, it was really important that people were using their gifts in a way that was meaningful to them. Who talked about writing? Somebody talked about writing and they had to write. Who was somebody in the front row? Or?
Tracy.
Ah, it was you. Yeah, writing. Okay. Writing is one of the sacred gifts. So in the program that I teach, there's 24 very specific sacred gifts we talk about, and one of them is writing. Okay, so you love to write, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So do you love to write children's storybooks?
I have aspirations to do that.
Oh, well, then I picked the wrong one. So what would you not enjoy writing about?
Sports, politics, politics.
Politics. Okay. So if your gift is writing, and you take a job writing about politics and you're not interested in politics, do you think you're going to feel on purpose? No, okay, you're not. So the idea is to find out what your gifts are. It's not one gift, it's gifts, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. And then applying your gifts to something that's meaningful to you. Now that doesn't mean, let's say you discover that you have 3 or 4 different gifts. It doesn't mean you have to use all 3 or 4 of those at once on one thing. Okay, so that's like an example I gave. When I'm doing this, I'm teaching, and I feel on purpose, and I'm teaching content that's meaningful to me, right? However, I also have a gift of service, and I'll talk about that in a bit. So when I'm in my gift of service, working as a nurse was easy, doing, you know, where you just task-oriented physical work. Okay, that was meaningful to me. So the idea is not that you need to be using all of your gifts doing one thing that's meaningful. Sometimes it works out that way. For example, a school teacher might be using a teaching gift, but they might be using other gifts, doing crafts and creative stuff as a teacher, and that might be meaningful to them as well. So we're not looking for like using all your gifts in one thing that's meaningful. It could be different combinations, and it could be different things to do at different times. So then I believe that if everybody just knew what their gifts were and they were applying it to something meaningful, that they would be happy. And so then I'm coaching people, and then I find out, oh, it's not true, they're not happy. You know, some of them are, and they're feeling a bit more on purpose, but it didn't seem to just be those 2 things. So what I found over time was that it seemed to be really important that what they were doing was a benefit to somebody else. That seemed to become almost like the secret sauce in the Feel on Purpose formula, was that now they were realizing what their gifts were, they were applying it to something that was meaningful, and when somebody benefits from it, like our special needs teacher, what was your name? Carmen, so like Carmen, she's using her gifts doing something that's meaningful, and now this boy has benefited from it. And doesn't that just make you feel more on purpose, right? So if this piece is taken out of the equation and you're doing something that's meaningful to you and nobody benefits from it, you may be enjoying it for your own benefit, but it doesn't have quite the same juice as when somebody else is benefiting. So let me give you an example. Let's say you love to arrange flowers, you know, and you're really good at it, right? So you've got a beautiful garden and you love to arrange flowers and you make beautiful arrangements, and you know, it's sitting there and it's lovely, but if somebody comes over and says, oh, like that's beautiful, or you give it to somebody, and then they're like, oh my gosh, like that's so beautiful, it just adds that little element, doesn't it, okay? So then I found that, you know, when you know that what you're doing is of benefit to somebody else, it really does feel different and more on purpose. So I figured if you knew all that, you'd feel on purpose, but it still wasn't the case. The last piece is the one that really was huge and had an impact for me, and that was that when you're using your gifts doing something meaningful of benefit to others, that you are in the right vehicle. So a vehicle would be a full-time job is a vehicle, a part-time job is a vehicle, network marketing is a vehicle, volunteering is a vehicle, being a consultant is a vehicle, having a practice is a vehicle, being on stage is a vehicle. Those are all things that are vehicles. So what happened for me is I left nursing, I'm using my gift of teaching, I'm teaching something meaningful to me, and I'm hearing that it's of benefit to others, I'm getting that feedback. and I'm in the stupid business that I can't stand. So even though these three pieces were in place, I was sitting at home feeling so frustrated about marketing and figuring out how to market myself and how I'm going to promote myself and all of that. So what I came to realize is it was the wrong vehicle for me. Business and being self-employed for me was not the right vehicle. When I was a nurse, the right vehicle was absolutely having a salaried job. So, however, doing what I do in the Sacred Gifts program, there's not like a lot of jobs being posted in newspapers looking for what it is that I do. So I had to find a way to find some happiness within the vehicle of business for me. And the way I found that was by creating partnerships with people who love what I do and they stick me in front of their audience. So I work with a company called Make Your Mark. And they loved the whole concept of sacred gifts, so they asked me to be on stage in front of their students. I do a segment of it, and then I offer them my workshops. So my workshops are now filled by somebody else's people, and I don't have to do all that marketing and promoting. That makes sense? So the vehicle for me is not to be like a solopreneur working on my own. The vehicle for me is really to form really great partnerships of people who love what I do and will promote me. And I'm really great at promoting other people in return. I'm just not great at promoting myself. Has anybody ever had that experience? Yeah, it's like it's fun to promote somebody else. Talking about myself is like, I don't know, it's not really what I want to do. So those really became the four elements of the Feel on Purpose formula. And I found that for most people, if those four things are in place, then people typically feel much more on purpose. So tonight what I want to focus on is mostly in this piece here, because this is the piece that most people really don't know about. Most people don't understand or know what these sacred gifts are. I call them sacred gifts because I use the word sacred, meaning that I feel they should be treated with reverence. And once you have a better understanding of them, you'll probably feel that way as well. To you, whatever your gifts are, you all have some, all of you. As much as you might want to think or believe that maybe you don't have any or whatever, or we're not going to find them, we won't probably have an opportunity to find gifts in everybody tonight because we only got a bit of time. But I can absolutely tell you that you all have gifts within you, absolutely 100%. Out of the 24 gifts, most of you have probably several, okay? It could be 3, it could be 4, it could be 5. It doesn't really matter what the number is, but it's several. It's not just one. But that means out of 24 gifts, there's a whole bunch of them you don't have. And as much fun as it is to find out what gifts you have, I got to tell you guys, it is liberating, absolutely liberating to find out which gifts you don't have and to let those go. It's totally liberating. So we're going to talk about sacred gifts. Okay, so number 1 is that there's 24 of them. Now there could be more. In my program, I talk about 24 of them, isn't that? And number 2 is that you've got several of them. So write down, I have several of them. Okay. Number 3 is that they're not part of your DNA. Okay, when I describe some sacred gifts, people will often say, I got that from my mother. My mother's like that. Or I got that from my father. My father is like that. Or it's because I'm Hungarian and all Hungarian people do that. Or anybody here Hungarian? No. Or Filipinos, you know, it's like, oh, Filipinos, they're like all hospitable. They're all just that way, right? So it's true that there are cultural influences, for sure, that might cause us to be a certain way. However, when it comes to these unexplainable abilities that we have, we can show that it's not part of the DNA by taking absolutely identical twins. So you can take identical twins or triplets, and they may be at a cellular level, at a DNA level, totally identical, but when it comes to the gifts that they show as they're growing up, they can be very different. Okay? Now, it could be that you could have twins that have the same gifts because there's only 24 of them. So there's possible that there could be combinations that are the same. You could have twins that are both very musical, but you can have twins that are absolutely identical in their DNA, and one is totally naturally musical and the other one's not. So we know that it's not part of the DNA. So that means that they have this unexplainable, mysterious origin. Here are some of the things that I've been told by people as to what they believe, how it is it came to be that they have these abilities within them that they can't really explain. So some people believe that your soul has picked them. Some people believe that it's part of your fate to have these particular gifts that you have. Some people believe it's part of their destiny. Some people believe it's connected to a past life. These are all things that people have actually told me. Christians believe that they are God-given, so you may have heard the expression of somebody having a God-given gift. You watch like American Idol or The Voice, and sometimes you'll hear a judge say something about, oh my gosh, that's a God-given gift. Hindus believe that they're part of your dharma or your duty to live them out. In the First Nations, they believe that these abilities come from the Great Spirit. In Peru, I've been to Peru a couple of times, the Quechuan people believe that these abilities come from Pachamama, which is Mother Earth. Spiritualists believe that they are from the universe, that the universe endows us with these things. I'm here to say that I don't care what you believe. I really don't care what you believe. Whatever it is that you believe as to how you got these doesn't matter to me. What's really exciting to me is that you come to believe that you have them. Does that make sense? Doesn't matter how you wanted, whatever it is you want to believe as to how you got them that's separate and that's your business. But believing that you have them, that's where it gets really exciting. Okay, so number 5. They appear, they seem to get activated when they're utilized for the benefit of others. So when they get utilized for the benefit of others, or when they're kind of called out of you by others in a situation, that's what seems to kind of activate them. So how many of you have found that there are certain things that you don't particularly like doing for yourself, but you're quite happy to go do for somebody else? Yeah, so you don't like house cleaning, but maybe your friend has had surgery or something, and now they need some help. And so you go over there, and it's just such an odd thing that you might find that you're like offering to do the laundry, or you're like, oh, I'll just clean up or do whatever. I mean, some of you are thinking, no, I would never do that, don't want to do that, but some of you might feel that way, and that this feeling of how enjoyable it is when you're doing it for somebody else, but that same thing might not be so enjoyable for yourself, okay? So that seems to be true of all the sacred gifts. There is something in it about the fact that when it's benefiting somebody else, it seems to light it up a little bit. How many of you are, for example, good listeners? Anybody here find that they're good listeners, that people talk to you and share things with you quite openly? Yeah? Have you ever had that experience? Okay. So it could be true for some of you that you're very much like that for other people, but you may not be so much like that maybe for your own kids or your husband or your partner or your spouse. Anybody relate to that? Yeah? Yeah, exactly. So the benefit seems to somehow be tied to certain people. It doesn't mean it's going to be true for everybody. So you might find that you really love doing it for one person, but it may not feel as great doing it for somebody else. Number 6 is that the very thing that you could be really good at in your gift, and that could be of benefit to somebody else, may not be of direct benefit to you. Okay, so anybody here find that people come to them for advice, and that you're actually really surprisingly, unexplainably quite good at giving advice to people? Has anybody ever had that experience? Okay. So have any of you had the experience of being really good at giving other people advice, maybe about relationships, but your own relationship is totally 100% screwed up? Yeah? So how many of you can relate to that? Yeah. So it's quite amazing and unexplainable that the very thing that you may be gifted in for the benefit of somebody else may be the exact area in your own life that's totally and completely screwed up. So this is a relief. Turn to somebody and say, this is a relief. This is a relief. Because often people will wonder, like they'll think, what is wrong with me? Like everybody's coming to me for advice and I'm so good at giving advice. My own life is a mess. So that's just the nature of this. It's the nature of it. And once we learn to accept that, it makes it a lot easier. And ideally, what it will do is make you feel free to go ahead and give people advice if you're good at it, even if your own life is a mess. Make sense? Okay, so the idea is that you have these gifts within you, and you don't need to have your own experience be all perfect and everything in place before you can use and share your gifts for the benefit of others, but those gifts just may not show up for yourself. But you don't have to wait until you have everything in place in your own life or your own experience before you really get out there and you can be effective. Okay, so number 7 is that you don't have to have it all together. Or you can be a hot mess. 8 is looking at kind of where do these gifts, where do they live and how do we explain how they work in us? So this is you, and you look like a bagel right now. So this is you as a human being. Okay, so this is your humanness. Your humanness would be things like your personality. Then in your humanness, there's your culture. It could be your religion that you're raised in, your gender. So you can be an extrovert, you can be an introvert, you could be a pervert.
A pervert.
I could be a pervert. So that's all part, these are all parts of your humanness, okay? Okay, so we are human beings, all right? We're human beings. We are not purely spiritual beings. We're human beings. We've got like bodies and we're here on earth. We're human beings. So all of this stuff, plus a whole lot more, makes up part of your humanness. And then there's this part of you that is your beingness. We are human beings. And your sacred gifts are part of your beingness. They're here. What that means is that you can be a hot mess out here and you can still have it all together within your gifts. That's why they can be in contrast. You can be you can have very nurturing gifts. An example of one of the 24 gifts that's a very nurturing gift would be the gift of compassion. Okay, so when you think of compassion, who do you think of on the in the world that was a person known for compassion? Right, Mother Teresa. Do you know that she's been sanctified? She's a saint now as of last September, yeah. So Mother Teresa, you think of that in terms of compassion. So Mother Teresa had a gift of compassion. Her personality, holy man, that woman was like, she was like military. She knew what she wanted. She was organized. She was tough. I mean, she walked right into the Vatican and went straight to the Pope. She apparently walked into, he was having a meeting with somebody, and she just walked right in. She walked right up to him, and she said, I want to know how come it takes longer for women to become saints than men. Like, she was no pussycat. She was tough, right? So in her humanness, her personality was very strong. She was very challenging. But one of her gifts was incredibly a very soft, nurturing gift. So you can have gifts that are in complete contrast to your personality and your humanness. You can have gifts that don't appear to be supported by your humanness. So, for example, you could have a gift. I'll give you an example of me. So when I'm teaching, I seem pretty outgoing, right? Like I'm up here and I seem comfortable doing this. I'm an absolute total introvert. I'm a complete total, I am like socially inept. The worst thing you could ever do to me is put me in a networking experience and tell me to go in a group and network. I will go stand in the bathroom. I have been to functions where they're like, okay, we're just going to take a break now and you guys take out your cards and you can network. And I go and I stand in the bathroom until the 10 minutes are over and then I come back out when I get to sit down and listen. Can anybody relate to me? Okay, so I have a teaching gift and I'm comfortable doing this and I feel on purpose doing this, but it's in total contrast to my humanness and my personality. Make sense? So knowing the difference between your humanness and your beingness helps to explain some of this conflict that you might feel about some of the things that you can do quite easily but that seem to be in conflict to your humanness. So these gifts equip you. They equip you with what you need to feel on purpose. So these gifts that you're going to discover within you, or that you already know that you have, they are key, they're foundational to what it is that's going to make you feel on purpose. And that's why obviously it's so important to find them. Number 10, they can be active in you or they can be dormant. So what we know for sure is that you're born with them and you die with them. And then in between, here's what can happen. You can have a gift that you don't really see evidence of until you're a teenager and you get a job and all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, I can do this and it's easy and I love it. And then you go to school, whoa, and then you're like not into school, maybe you don't really particularly like learning, it's not really your thing, and you find that you're not feeling as on purpose, but then maybe you take up a hobby and then you find that, oh, that gift is present again. So it can be that kind of thing that goes on in life. So your gifts are not always like engaged like that your whole life. It just doesn't work that way. It's typically that they come and go in waves based on what's needed and based on what you're doing. Then you could have another gift that has a different pattern, and this could be happening in you. It could be that you've got this gift, and then when this one's active, this one seems to be dormant, and it could have a completely different pattern. So you can be doing two different things that look very different and still feel on purpose. So that's typically what it looks like when they're active. But this is what I want to tell you about. In terms of your gifts being dormant, they can be dormant because it's just a natural part of the pattern, but the number one reason why 90% of the people on this planet will die without ever having had the experience of using their gifts and feeling on purpose, and that's because typically people themselves will suppress their gifts. Okay, so number 11 is that they're not the same as skills. They're not the same as skills. How many of you are really good at doing something, that you don't particularly enjoy doing? As a matter of fact, you can be really good at doing something that sucks the life out of you. Has anybody had that experience? Yep. Okay, so skills are out here. Skills are learned, okay? Your gifts are in here. Now you might have, let's say you have a gift in creativity, okay? So let's say you have an artistic gift. You might go to school to learn skills that will support the gift. All right, so you already have the gift, but you might go learn skills. Let's say you're a craftsman and you love to do woodwork. You might go to school and learn how to use the saw and do particular things. Those are skills. Talents are out here. So I have a talent in music. I absolutely don't have a gift in music, but I'm talented in music. I can sing in harmony. I've sung in choral groups for over 30 years. I can play the piano a little bit. I can pick up a harmonica and play skip to Maloo, whatever. I have some talent in music. I absolutely don't have a gift in music. I'm not interested in having a gift in music. I'm not motivated to want to do anything in music.
What's
Make
the
sense?
difference?
What's that?
What's the difference in having a gift and having a talent?
Well, typically, it's not so much that there's a difference. It's that if you're wanting to distinguish it, you can be talented at doing something that doesn't make you feel on purpose, and you can be skilled at doing something. Right, and that it doesn't make you feel on purpose. So what you're looking for these are all ways to help you identify what your gifts might be, is that you're good at it and you love doing it. You're good at it and it makes you feel on purpose, then we're probably moving into this realm. If you're good at it and it sucks the life out of you, then it may not be a gift. Okay, so number 12 is that it's your way of giving back to the planet. Whatever your gifts are is your way of being in service. So if you have a gift in writing, writing is how you serve the planet. That's how you give back to the planet. If you have a gift of compassion, then you may want to give back by going to work with homeless people. But if you don't have a gift of compassion, you are not going to feel on purpose. You're going to run the other way. You're not going to want to be doing work in a soup kitchen, for example, okay? So whatever your gifts are, when you're using them for the benefit of others, that is your way of giving back to the planet. Whether you get paid or not does not make a difference. What matters is if you are withholding your gift and you will not share it with others because you're not getting paid, that's different. You feel the difference in that? Yeah. Okay, so whatever your gifts are, No matter how ordinary or practical it might seem to you, when you are in your gifts, that's your way of giving back to the planet. We are not all meant to work in soup kitchens. I ran a soup kitchen for 5 years and I was a nurse for 33 years and I do not have a gift of compassion at all. I'm just like I'm not like, I can be compassionate in my humanness. I do not have a gift of compassion. Who can share one thing you've learned that has made a difference for you?
That it's okay if I don't have it all together, but that I can still be helpful to other people with my gifts.
Oh my God, that makes me so excited. Yes. That's huge. Like, people have huge breakthroughs in our workshops when they realize that that's what sets them free to go out and do whatever it is.
Wasn't that an awesome evening?
Oh,
I learned so much.
Oh, I love the sacred gifts.
Oh, I know. It really helps you understand each other and what makes us tick, doesn't it?
Oh my goodness. Now, wasn't that funny, her story on how she does not have the gift of hospitality?
I know, hiding in the bathroom.
And when she did those questions, I got a perfect score on everyone, and I definitely have the gift of hospitality.
Myself is included. I
Yes.
love having people over. Come on over.
Oh, good. Then we'll have parties at your guys' house.
Yeah.
Because I don't have that gift.
You don't?
No, but my ex-husband took that course and I learned he has the gift of singleness. I wish I had known that 25 years ago.
I was even thinking when I was doing that quiz, because they were talking about having people stay overnight, and I remembered, I had you and Andy and your kids live with me for a month, and you definitely have to have the gift of hospitality.
Yeah.
To put up with us, yes.
Or to have someone live in your house,
Yes,
right?
for
Also,
sure.
maybe I don't have the gift then.
You mean I can't come over?
Well,
Yeah, so
you can.
what a great, enlightening, amazing evening. Just love her.
We're so blessed to have all these fantastic speakers, just teaching us, educating the women, and helping their business move forward at the same time. I love that win-win
Yes.
when we have that. Yeah.
All right. So I guess that's it. We'll see you
We'll
in a
see you
couple
next
weeks.
week.